meeting for February 23rd, 2016. I'd like to call the meeting to order at this time. And would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Most gracious Father, we thank you tonight for the opportunity to gather to conduct this business of this fine city. We pray that you will guide this council as we make our decisions that affect the community. These things we ask in thy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Davis. Graham.
Here.
Candia. Day.
Here.
Mayor Martina.
Present. Item 5, declaration of conflict of interest. There being none. Item 6, ceremonial matters. Legislative update presentation provided by Churchwell White LLP. And good evening,
Good evening.
and welcome to Greater Newman.
Yes, thank you very much. It's my first time at the city council. I've been here before years ago, but not in this building. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Celia Mata, and I started working at Churchill White in November after 16 years of having worked for the State Assembly. I work for 9 members, and they're all very different and the same at the same time. And I was not only a personal staffer or legislative aide, but also I work in the Assembly Budget Committee, so I have that experience, which I hope it can be of help to you guys. So I would like to start with my presentation, and I know you each have a copy of the presentation. So I just wanted to give you guys like an overview of what happened last year. As you all know, lots of things happened at the state capitol, but the main things that happened last year, especially for the budget, was that it was positive for cities. The first item, the $20 million for local law enforcement grants, if you guys might remember, that used to be a $40 million pot. Based on the governor's realignment proposal years ago, and that was a huge fight, because the proposal was to get rid of it, but thankfully several members stood up for their local law enforcement agencies, and we got $20 million. Also, we got some funding allocated from the water bond, Proposition 1. We hoped to get some more funding out this year. I think it's about $3 billion that the governor is proposing in his new budget. And this money goes out in grants. So, cities would have to apply for the grant fundings for different projects. Let's see. For cap and trade, they allocated 60% of the funding, and the rest, the 40%, they hope to allocate this year, but that's going to depend on the legislative priorities, and that's going to be another fight. Let's see. As far as legislation, I'm sure most of you know we got the medical marijuana bill package signed, and I'll go over that a little bit later in the presentation. But local governments also now have AB2, which is a new economic development tool, which replaces the old redevelopment process. And speaking of the old redevelopment process, we also passed legislation, cleanup legislation, that provides clarification for the new process for the redevelopment dissolution. Let's see. Let me know if I'm going too fast or if I'm going too slow. Let's see. So we're going to go to, and I didn't know exactly what you guys wanted me to talk about, because every year there's over 2,000 bills that are introduced in the legislature, but, this is my fourth presentation, and in my prior presentations, most cities that I've been to are interested in economic development and transportation, funding, and water. So that's what I bring you guys here today. So as far as AB2, so this is basically a new, it's an authorization to create a new local entity to provide redevelopment option for local governments. And it's very similar to the old redevelopment process, and you can pretty much do the same things as, let's see, and I have listed them here. They pretty much have the same powers, but I think there's more accountability and more oversight over the process and the funding. Let's see. So there are two ways. I think this is an important point. There are two ways to create this authority. One is for a city or county to get together to create the authority, and it would be administered by a 5-member board appointed by the local government. And the second way would be for a city or a county or a special district or a combination of all of them to create the authority by entering into a joint powers agreement. I checked last week with the California State Association of Counties because I was curious to know if there's been any movement or has there been any authority that has been created already, and they said that not yet, but they know that cities are getting in touch with their counties to try to figure out if they want to, create one and how they would go about it. So I'll make sure to keep you in the loop and updated as to what's happening and see who is brave enough to implement, this new bill and authority. On the redevelopment dissolution bill, I just wanted to mention, because it's very cumbersome, and probably the city manager is the one that has to deal the most with this issue. So the bill is important because it provides clarification for the process, and it also creates new deadlines for the dissolution of the existing redevelopment agencies. In my experience working in the Capitol, I know that in the Capitol building, a lot of the cities, whenever we got calls, it was because they were having a hard time getting through the Department of Finance and try to get the information that they needed. So if there's, any case where you guys, fall under the same experience, then, that's why I'm here. Make sure you give us a call and we'll try to figure out how to help out. So that's the importance of that bill. On the medical marijuana regulations and licensing bill package, so the bill package pretty much created the regulatory framework for the medical marijuana, including cultivation of marijuana, licensing, taxing, and enforcement. As you all know, the legislature recently passed AB 21, which repealed the March 1st deadline for local governments to develop the regulations. And what we were told, it was inadvertently put in the language of the bill, so thank God that's taken care of. You can all breathe better. Let's see. And I did get an update on where they are right now. So the Department of Consumer Affairs is in the early stages of creating the new Bureau of Medical Marijuana Regulation. And they anticipate, as required by law, they anticipate having regulations start to be developed by January 1st, 2018. So that will give you guys some time to create your own regulations that fit, the needs of your communities and that works for you guys. We also understand that the department, once they start developing regulations, they will post information on the website for everybody to know what they're doing, and they're going to post the regulations online. And I believe they plan to create stakeholder meetings so that everybody can have their input on it before anything is approved. Let's see. So that's all that, and it will remain to be seen how this works out as the regulations begin to be implemented. In regards to water, despite the recent rains, we're still in a drought, so several of the local local legislation that impacts local governments are still in place regarding water conservation. So that's the only reason why I put them there, to remind everybody. As far as drinking water access, one of the legislation that I've been getting more questions on is AB 401 by Assemblymember Dodd, which is the Low-Income Water Rate Assistance Program. I know it's a study bill, but I know it's really important for your constituents to, have a way to be able to get some help in paying their water bill. Because I know there are programs for folks when it comes to energy or electricity, but there's nothing that they can get help on when it comes to water. So as far as that legislation, we'll make sure to keep you in the loop. So the governor proposed some funding for staffing for the staff person that it's gonna do the study. But that item has to be approved by the legislature. So if you guys want to send a letter of support in support of the budget item, we can help you do that, and saying, please approve, because this is something that's really going to help our constituents. So the report is due January 2018, so we won't know until then, what the proposals really are and what that program would look like. But at least there's movement. The fact that the governor is putting money in, that's a good sign. And stop me if you have any questions as I'm going through the presentation. I know groundwater, groundwater legislation is another issue that's of interest to a lot of local governments. As you know, the Groundwater Sustainability Management Act was enacted in 2014, and it provided a framework for sustainable management of groundwater supplies by local authorities. So the biggest package was passed in 2014. Last year, we only saw several bills related to groundwater, but it was mainly to either fix or tweak the legislation that was passed the year before. So I just wanted to mention a couple of bills, and one of them is AB 39 by Assemblymember Salas. So why I think the bill is important is because it clarifies deadlines for groundwater sustainability agencies to develop a plan, and I believe it extends the deadlines so local governments will have more time to put together those plans. And also the bill, AB 939, also extends from 10 to 20 days the review period during which data used for setting fees under the Act is publicly available. So again, it's giving you more time and more flexibility. The other two bills, and I'm not a water expert, but we have an attorney in our firm that it's a water expert. So I always run to her for assistance or help. AB 1390 and SB 226, they both have to do with groundwater basin adjudication, which is the legal process to determine the rights to extract groundwater. And so AB 1390, they're contingent upon each other, but AB 1390 seeks to encourage early settlement at the offset, and SB 226 includes the procedural changes to accelerate the adjudication process. So it makes it easier. It makes the process easier, and it takes care of it at the very offset. So the objective is to make the adjudication process more cost-effective and ensure the process is fair. Again, I'm not the expert, but I understand this really helps the process of having access to groundwater. Because most rural cities, this is pretty much where they get their water from. So this is really important. I know it can be very complicated, but it does help local governments. And as far as, so for transportation, as you may know, the governor called a special session on transportation and healthcare last year. If I remember correctly, the special session on transportation only met once. And I know a lot of folks are disappointed that nothing really happened, and we were just talking about it earlier. I haven't received any indication as to when they're going to meet again, but it seems like they're working towards having a deal cut or trying to leverage or try to set everything up so that something does happen. I don't know if it's going to be a new tax or it's got to be something, because I know we need to get the funding somewhere. So we'll make sure to keep you in the loop when it comes to that. I know this transportation funding is a big issue for local governments because the need is there. Actually, statewide, I think the need is there. So we'll make sure to let you know of anything coming up, whether it's hearings or issues or funding proposals. Let's see. As far as top issues to watch, so again, last year there were 2 bills having to do with affordable housing efforts. One was vetoed by the governor, and the other one was stopped. I believe it was stopped on the assembly floor. And as you all know, the governor is very interested in climate change, especially after his trip to Paris, so I know he's full of ideas. Not really clear yet. Aside from the budget proposals, not really clear yet what other changes he wants to make. And water and drought funding allocations will continue this year, mainly from cap and trade funding and the water bond. And we'll make sure to keep you in the loop as far as any opportunities to get money. Like you say, we need more money. Everybody needs more money. I think one of the biggest fights is probably going to be, and when I say fights, it's, I really mean fights. I mean, between like the governor and the legislature is going to be the allocation of the budget surplus. As you know, the governor has been very clear, and he said he wants to put more money on the rainy day fund, in case we face another economic downturn. And then you have some legislators and some advocacy groups saying, no, we need to put more money in welfare programs or child care programs. And some members also want to increase the minimum wage again. So, so that's going to take a lot of negotiating and a lot of compromising, and, God knows where we're going to end up. But I think the governor has been very clear, and pretty much so far he has gotten everything he wants, which is why I understand is what happens with governors. So
That's
I
a
don't
good
know. That's what I was told when I worked on the budget committee. They pretty much get everything they want. And again, we'll make sure to keep you updated on the special sessions, especially infrastructure, transportation funding, because I know it's a huge issue for local governments. And I think the last thing, and it's very short because everywhere I've been, they have had long agendas, and I understand there's not a very long agenda today. So the last thing I wanted to say is to please use me as a resource. Like I said, I worked in the building for 16 years. I still have relationships in the building. Please call me or send me an email with any questions, whether it's legislation or a budget item, or if you want to write a letter of support or opposition or concern, then we can help you with that. I go to the Capitol at least once a day, probably more often as things begin to get really busy. As you know, the deadline to introduce legislation was last Friday, and about 2,100 bills were introduced. We went through them to see which ones impact cities. So I have a list that I'm tracking, but I would also like to hear from you guys, whether there's anything law enforcement funding that we need to fight for again, or transportation funding, water funding, anything. Just please be sure to let us know, and we can help you out with that. So it's very short. I thought it was going to go longer, but if you have any questions.
I'd like to say this is very timely. These are, like you say, the 2016 top issues to watch. Those are really important to everyone in the state of California.
Yeah, yeah. And it's good for me when I've been doing these presentations, it's good for me to hear from, the council members and the mayors that I've done the presentations for. And this is where I got to this part. This pretty much I've been hearing it from everybody, everywhere that I've been through. It's water, whether it's access, groundwater, water conservation, transportation funding. It's huge. It's big for everybody. And then economic development, because this is what the cities need at the moment. So anytime you guys have questions, just let me know.
Any questions?
Not right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything you
very
want to
much.
know about the governor or the legislature, just ask me. And like I said, if I don't have the
And
answer,
have to
I
tell
will
you
let
this,
you know.
I love this.
Yeah, that
That's
was
a great book.
that
Yeah,
was my
it's-
first assignment when
Yeah.
I got to Churchill
Yeah,
White,
it's really
and
great.
Very
I was telling Mr. Mayor that I used that as a reference myself because there's so many legislation that was enacted last year, and when somebody talks about a bill, I'm like, wait a minute, let me find it. So yeah. So anyways, he just complained that Nubia's picture wasn't on there. Sorry. I said next year. Next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. You guys have been very kind.
Yeah, your picture was right there. That's great. Okay. Moving on. Item 7, items from the public. This is non-agenda items. So if anyone has a non-agenda item that would like to speak, please go to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and everyone will be able to watch you on camera.
Hello, my name is Eileen Wyatt Stockman, and I reside in Ceres at 3929 Rickman Way. Been there almost 25 years. This is my husband, Nick Stockman. He's relatively new to Ceres. Prior to that, he was a farmer in the Wesley Grayson area for 60 years, dear, something like that.
Oh, my.
I just came tonight. I'm a candidate for Board of Supervisors District 5 seat in the June 7th primary, and just wanted to introduce myself to you. I take a great interest in what's going on here in Newman. I'm retiring after 18 years of Stanislaus County service. My job I'm retiring from is Foster Youth Education Liaison, which I very much enjoyed, and child welfare. Prior to that, I was a social worker for adult services for many years, serving veterans, elderly, disabled, and minor children with disabilities. And I started my career with the county as a job developer. And prior to that, I was at the Mercury News for 16 years as a recruitment advertising representative. But I want to tell you about the 2 weeks I worked in Newman in the mid-90s. I was a substitute teacher, and I took an assignment for this saintly woman named Mary. I can't remember her last name, but she was the principal and the teacher at the Continuation High School here now. It's West Side Valley Continuation High here in Newman. And she had to have minor surgery, so I took over for her for 2 weeks. And it was a really great experience. I commuted from Ceres to Newman, and that was my first introduction to Newman. And we've been blessed to be in Newman twice this week because we were at the crab feed at the FDS Hall the other night, and that was a lot of fun. Met some great people, teachers, FFA, volunteers, kids, and they asked us to come back. And they want to sit with us again, too. It was a lot of fun. And we love coming to the West Side Theater. I'm a jazz fan. He likes bluegrass. And let's see, what else? That's about it, I guess. I just wanted to introduce myself and tell you that this is a charming town. It's a jewel. It's a gem of the West Side. I love what you've done to the plaza and just the downtown area. It's really, and this is a beautiful building too, and it's a real privilege to be here. I have 2 adult children, and I have a son who's a major in the U.S. Marine Corps. And my husband, Nick, he has 4 adult children too, and we have 3 grandkids. And it's very nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Okay. Would anyone else like to, at this time, speak for the council on the agenda item? There being no one, moving on to the consent calendar. A, waive all readings of ordinance and resolution except by title. B, approval of warrants. C, approval of minutes of the February 9th, 2016 meeting. D, adopt resolution number 2016, next number, declaring certain personal property surplus properties and authorizing disposal and/or sale of properties. E, adopt resolution number 2016, next number, a resolution rejecting the claim of Melina Garcia.
I move that we approve the consent calendar as read.
I second the motion.
Okay, motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried 3 with 2 absent. 9 is a public hearing, and I don't believe we have any public hearing tonight. So we'll move on to item 10, regular business. A is report of Comforting Kids event at Pioneer Park.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council
Good
members.
evening.
Comforting Kids has requested exclusive use of Pioneer Park on June the 26th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. to host their benefit classic car show that they have had about the last 3 years, I believe. Event organizers will be inviting several vehicles to attend, but they do not have a specific number at this time. Usually it does not exceed about 125 vehicles located in the grass area of the park there. There will be a DJ playing oldies music during this event, and this will be a no alcohol served or sold event. And this currently has no conflicts that we are aware of with any other community events. Comforting Kids has made the following requests: exclusive use of the park and use of the Pioneer Park restroom facilities and electrical power at the location. Staff has made the following requests of Comforting Kids, and that would be to secure event liability insurance in the amount of $3 million, naming the city as an additional insured, to secure additional waste wheelers and position them throughout the park, and to cover the cost of 1 Public Works employees to assist with vehicle parking within the park. It is our recommendation that 1 on-call Public Works person be there to assist with vehicle placement around sensitive electrical and irrigation equipment that's set up in the park for the fall festivals, where that equipment is there for. Projected overtime cost should not exceed $200 for this event, and it is staff's recommendation that any and all applicable costs be invoiced to Comforting Kids. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Officer
No.
Brent? Looks like you did a great presentation. So,
Good write-up, too.
I think, this is a fantastic
Yeah.
group. I mean, Comforting Kids, I mean, I hope that people of Newman get involved because it's a worthwhile project. So, thank you. And I'll bring it back to the council now for direction.
Move that we approve the reservation of the park for Comforting Kids as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
3-2, 3 present and 2 absent. Okay, under regular business, item B. Adopt resolution number 2016, next number, approving changes to the employee home loan program for the city of Newman.
Evening, Mayor and council members. The Employee Home Loan Program was established back in 2007. The 2 goals of the program are 1, to attract employees to move to Newman, and 2, to increase the employee retention. The program's been in place for 8 years, and it's helped 5 employees, 2 which have paid off their loans, and 5 are still in the city employed. The reason staff is requesting a modification of the program is while the program currently allows the transfer of the employee home loan from one property to another, it doesn't provide details when there is an unusual circumstance which can cause a delay between home ownership. If there is, as an example, a divorce, a death in the family, or personal safety issues, the employee may have to sell the property without having another property immediately available to purchase. With a proposed change to the program, an employee can sell their house and pay off their loan, and then once they found another home, be able to step back into the loan program. The program has been reviewed by our attorney, Phaedra Norton, and incorporates her recommendations. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I have one question on it. The purpose is to keep employees in the community that they live. And looking at it, the difference between the two, they're pretty close. The loan amounts are a little bit different. But the time when the payments start having to be paid back with the original loan with the first time buyer, it's after 3 years. With the second one, it's within 60 days. And that kind of puts a damper on somebody that might be in a position where they have to use it a second time. Because of finances and that, and it won't allow them to kind of get past that down payment, because the purpose of it is for a down payment, isn't that correct?
Yeah. Now, this is, we try to treat the program similar to if a person was moving from one property right into the next one. They've already had their 3-year grace period at the beginning of the loan program, and their payments would continue. In this particular case, because of the delay, we felt adding another 3 years back into it again would be like starting the whole program over again. So in this case, we're trying to get them back into it, since this is their second bite of the apple, to get back into it, give them a 60-day grace period. That's enough time to get their primary loan all set up and start making payments on it, and then be able to step back into making their payments that they were making before, or similar payments on this.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions? Not to bring it back to the council for direction.
I move that we adopt resolution next to number 2016 approving changes to the employee home loan program for the city of Newman.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, 3 present and 2 absent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 11, items from District 5, Stanislaus County Supervisor Jim D. Martini, excuse me.
Good evening, Mayor Martina, members of the council and staff. I just have a few things for you tonight. First of all, you probably know the Healthcare Task Force meets this Thursday right here in Newman at the what I call the old council chambers. I think it's called something else now, but community room or something. Anyway, at that time, we're going to be going over our strategic plan and I'll have an update on the Family Resource Center that'll be going in Gustine. That's coming along, really well. It's, they're difficult to put in, but anyway, it looks like that's a done deal. And then we will review a grant application we've sent into Sutter Health for some funding for the task force. So anyway, meeting starts at 6 o'clock. Also, I want to thank Newman for hosting it for us this time as we move up and down Highway 33. They've been always really good about providing a good spot for us. I have a brief update on the Crow's Landing Air Base. I talked to Keith Boggs, project manager, today. The environmental impact report, the CEQA, is just about done. It will go into circulation for public comment sometime this summer. As that document's released, I can give you a better description of really what that is. But basically, it is the business park with the use of the airport. That has not changed. There'll be some 5-acre parcels carved out that for development first. We've secured some sewer capacity off of Diablo Grande, and so we don't have to build a sewer plant. Anyway, the DRR goes out in circulation. Everything should be done sometime in 2017. We'll be ready for the project. It takes forever to get anything done here in California. We've been at this for years. But anyway, it's just about done now. And once you get through EIR and CEQA, then you can actually start doing something. So we're just about to that point. Also, something else that's languaged on for years is the solar project at the landfill. This project has probably started, we started negotiations with this thing probably 4 or 5 years ago. Anyway, the holdup there was the power purchase agreement. We think that we have something very soon in the works on that, and this will be a $300 million, 150 megawatt project. And this is in the area where adjacent to the landfill that we're not using at this time. We will use it someday. But right now, it's considered, vacant land. So we're going to do a lease with a company that's going to put in these solar panels. And this has been going on for a while. I mean, there's nothing new, but what is new is that we're very close to a power purchase agreement, and you can't go out and spend $300 million if you have no place to sell the power. So it's anyway, that the last briefing I got, that looks pretty good. So if that goes through, I'll give you more details on it. Right now, it's the purchaser wants to keep secret who that is, so I don't even know who it is. Anyway, that's all I have tonight. If you have any questions, I'll try to attempt to answer them.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the
update.
Yeah. Crow's Landing, we haven't heard that in a long time.
Really?
It's kind of exciting to hear something, this movement at Crow's Landing. I mean, I just don't, we've been holding our breath waiting for something to happen there, and I know that.
Well, yeah, government moves at a snail's pace.
Slower than that, Jim. Slower than that, Jim.
It is still moving.
Thank you very much for the update. Good. Okay, item 12, items from city manager and staff.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Today, the county roadshow showed up with, led by Supervisor Withrow, and they were discussing two main projects and grants that they're going to be applying for. One's dealing with groundwater management and getting a programmatic EIR in place for wells that are going to be drilled by cities and by counties that are within districts. Will not cover wells that would be drilled by private parties on private property. They have to go through their own CEQA process. So we talked about partnering with that and being part of the funding option. City's funding obligation would be, I don't know, like $600 or something like that on a $500,000 project. So I told them that we'll bring it to council and we'll make sure we get that through. The second piece was the groundwater recharge grant application, and it's a resource management plan is what they're looking at. Where we come in on that one is, as you know, the Public Works Director, Mr. Kim, and I have been working on an LID project, which is a biofilter, which cleans up our stormwater, as well as it could potentially clean up ag water. It would allow for some groundwater recharge and a few other things that are going on out there. We could put that in the plan there, and then we'd really be eligible for some additional grant funding. So, but we're working on dual tracks because I know, again, our Public Works Director and I are really looking at supplying our own grant application for that particular project. We think that's a community amenity, and that not only will it clean up our stormwater before it discharges, it'll be a community amenity that people can go out and walk around and jog, or, because, you know, we've got about 105 acres out there, so it's going to be a good project. So, upcoming, we do have a couple meetings with the county staff that's going to be coming along. Finance Director and I will be meeting with the county CEO regarding the potential for the county to fund the community pool. And when I say fund it, I don't mean pay for it, but instead of the city having to incur costs that would go along with bonding, they may have a revenue source that we could tap into. They pay the construction cost, and then as revenues come in, if we're successful in our measure in November, those revenues would go to pay back the county. It would probably save the city probably somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million, which is directly, goes back to our residents, as they would have to pay less to build the project and have less of a tax on them in terms of what we're asking them to pay on an annual basis on their property taxes. So we're going to be having that discussion with him in the next coming weeks. And then we'll also be talking to them about, we have a property tax revenue sharing agreement with them, and it really deals with annexations. So with Northwest Quadrant and the EIR administrative draft expected to come into staff within the next 2 weeks, we're going to start talking to them a little bit about sharing the revenues. We're not sure that we can get much movement on the residential portion, but we really think that there's some opportunity to get some movement and get a better
return for us on the commercial and, or the, we'll just call it the non-residential piece, which could significantly help us as that project moves forward. So that's all that I have, and I can answer any questions that you may have.
Michael, where are we at as far as putting together a group to go out and actually talk to residents about the pool?
Okay, so there's two pieces that go along with that, Mayor. The first piece is some of that's going to have to be private. So Ms. Butero will be forming or getting a group of people together to form a PAC to actually promote a potential measure for the city.
Okay.
From a city's perspective, we can only educate, provide educational materials, and really talk about what the measure is and the pros and cons of it, and what the tax, if you support it, this is what your tax dollars would go towards in that particular measure. So there's really two pieces to it. So so Ms. Butero is probably going to be the person there. And then we'll probably just, Mayor, yourself, and I, and maybe Ms. Ocasio will probably limit the number of people that go to the small groups like 50 Plus and Rotary, and give messages and meet with them at their meetings. We're probably going to limit that to 2 or 3 people, so that way we just have one consistent message on there. But we'll pass out educational materials, and we'll develop educational materials as we start getting closer to the project. Now, we don't want to get too far in front of the council from a staff's perspective, because we haven't brought anything back to you formally to ask you to approve anything. So, again, the finance director, Lou, and I are just continuing to massage the numbers a little bit. We're working with Stephanie in terms of working with the architects and designers in terms of what a operational budget's going to look like, what a construction budget's going to look like, and all the other pieces. So it's a little premature to get out too far, because again, we don't want to get out in front of the council. We don't want to recommend something and then you feel that it needs to be bigger or smaller, and the word's already gone out as one thing. And so if we wanted that to happen, we'd just call Dean up and he'll spread the word on whenever we want it to be. So we want to make sure you get it first.
Thank you, Michael.
The other funding opportunity for it seems interesting, very appealing compared to a bonding it.
Yes, yes, and that was something that our supervisor had come up and discussed with us, and as well as his county CEO. We've had some very preliminary discussions with them. So our goal as we go to meet with the CEO is to get an MOU in place. And so what we're going to have to take him is basically a financial pro forma, saying this is how many parcels we have, this is what we're expecting in terms of revenue, this is the kind of money that can support. So we would like to have, this amount of money spread out over this number of years at this interest rate. If we can come to that kind of agreement and then get an MOU together, then when we go to our residents, we say, okay, we already have an agreement with the county. They've signed on through an MOU that if we are successful, they're going to put this level of funding in it. So I think that it's, like you said, it's a great opportunity for us, and it's a great opportunity for our residents. And these are the type of partnerships that we need to form. So when we go to our residents and ask them, is this a project you think you can support? We can say, look, the city's involved, the county's involved, and then we've already met with landowners in the Northwest Quadrant who have expressed an interest to be part of it as well. So, and then there's a grant available. We're not eligible to apply this year because the revenue stream hasn't been approved yet. But if we approve it in November, by February of next year, we'll apply for that grant again, and we could be eligible up to $1 million or $2 million towards that project. So
I remember when we met with Adam Gray, it was about a year ago, he had mentioned possibly putting something through that when communities invest in themselves, being able to put matching grant funds with it. I don't know if we can reach out to him to.
yeah, we're trying to get a meeting not only with Assemblymember Gray, but also Senator Cannella, and maybe try to get them together. They work well together, so if we can get them together and they could maybe co-sponsor something, same type of thing that,
Right.
Maybe it's 250,000, maybe it's 500,000, whatever piece we can get to reduce the burden on our residents, and again to to show that, look, we have multiple partners involved at local, county, and state levels that want this project to go through, then we're hoping we can meet that 2/3 threshold.
Well, add one question on something you had hit a little bit further. The groundwater, reclaiming it and that park.
Yes.
How far out would we be looking at something like that potentially?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of
When
stuff.
when we get the grant, we have a biologist out there right now that's looking to see if there's any wetlands as defined by the Federal Clean Water Act.
Right.
It's looking like there is. So that presents an obstacle because there's a 401, 404 permit that you have to go through the Army Corps of Engineer. The good thing is our project is about recreating wetlands. So we're not going to reclaim and take away wetlands. We're actually going to add to the amount of wetlands that's already out there. So we're hoping we can get some partnership in that.
I know
We're going to have to do an EIR probably on that project and a NEPA project.
I know Fish and Game comes out and invests in a lot of that also.
Yeah, well, Fish and Game's going to be part of it. We've had conversations with CCID to be another local partner, at least with a letter of support. So we're just trying to create a network that would get behind the project and move it forward. I know Mr. Kim has really pushed this project in some of his groundwater, stormwater meetings, and everybody likes it because it's really unique and it really hasn't been tried in the valley that much. So it's starting to show up on the radar of people who work in Sacramento. So once we get a project grant application move forward, we think we have a good chance of being successful. But
Yeah, I think
it's
that-
probably 2 or 3 years before we could. 2 or 3 years after we get the grant that we'll probably start seeing some earth move and some of the other things.
I think it would be a great project, not only for the city, but, for the county and everything, because you draw in wildlife. It could be used for a lot of different things, as well as community using it as walking trails and
Correct. Groundwater recharge.
and then all the benefits of the
Cleaning up
groundwater.
ag water. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of different factors that come into play in that particular project. When we originally dreamed it up, there's a lot of parties that would benefit from that. And the city being one of them as well as our residents.
Exciting, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Staff,
I don't have anything tonight.
nothing? Lou?
Treasurer's reports for January are in your inboxes, and next month we start sending out packets to each of the departments to begin work on budget for 2016-17.
Very good. Thank you.
Good evening, City Mayor and council members. As Celia Mata providing the presentation, there are key kind of issues associated with water as well as funding opportunities. Per Councilman Graham's request, the next meeting, so a presentation regarding the compliance issues as well as funding opportunities city has developed will be presented. At this point, the city has been complying with all the water regulation without any problem. That's bottom line. I can answer to any question you may have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. And Keith, tonight?
All is well on the fire side. We got some new radios, which we've needed badly, so we're going to work on getting those programmed and have those for any major incidents or even just routine incidents, and then continuing to work with agencies in the area.
Yeah, I think it was a great transition having you come in as a fire chief, because
Thank you.
I've talked to a lot of volunteers, and they're really pleased having one of their own, they say.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Congratulations. Anyway, now we're going to the council.
Congratulations, you finally have a badge.
Thank you.
Hi. Did we ever come to anything with the Lions Club? Did we come figure something out with them?
We have not reached an agreement with them yet.
Okay. That's, I was just curious.
On behalf of my daughter Janice and my son Jeff and myself, I'd like to reach out and thank the community, the city staff, the mayor, and the council for your expressions of support and sympathy over the loss of my wife. She was a wife, a mother, a partner to me, and a friend to me for more than 50 years. And a very special lady For those that knew her, she was loved by just about everyone. So thank you all for your support, and I'm glad to be here tonight. This helps me help the city and helps with the healing process. So thank you all again for your support.
And I'd just like to say, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. We don't have a lot of people in the audience, but we have quality. And that's what it's all about. In my life, I've been a quality person, so I want to thank you for coming tonight. And yeah, we don't like to look out there and see empty chairs, so the more people out there, the better. But anyway, thank you. And with that, I'll bring it to council for adjournment.
So move.
Second?
Motion is made, second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned, and thank you again.